There was a boy named Yui who spent his entire life training relentlessly so that one day he could avenge his family. The most painful memory that still haunted him dated back 13 years, when he was just a small child, watching his house burn while a stranger dragged his mother away from him. We return to the present, where Yui sits lost in thought, wondering, what happened to his mother? When will he see her again? The next day, in front of the restaurant, the scene was chaotic. Many people lay beaten on the ground, among them a man named Ja. A young man named Howsy Bai passed by, and knowing that Ja was always causing trouble, he asked, "Did you bother the girl working at the restaurant again? Her name is Cheng." But Ja denied it, claiming he had done nothing, and added that the one who attacked him was still inside the restaurant. When Bai entered the restaurant, he found Yui sitting calmly, as if nothing had happened. He was surprised, for Yui hadn't run away after everything he had done. Bai approached him and asked what had made him attack Jia and his men. Yui calmly replied, "Jia is an evil man, and he was harming the people in the restaurant." At that moment, Bai heard Cheng calling out to him in great fear. He rushed to her and asked if Yui had hurt her, believing at first that he was the one who attacked her. But Cheng clarified the truth, saying that Jia was the one beating her, while Yui had saved her and fought Jia instead. Then Bai tried to comfort her and calm her down. Suddenly, the restaurant's door was smashed open, and a large number of soldiers stormed inside, searching for the one who had attacked the men outside. At that moment, Yui immediately confessed that he was the one responsible, continuing to eat his food without even looking at them. The soldiers advanced to arrest him, but Bai stepped in and asked the commander, "How can you arrest a man without even knowing what truly happened?" The commander mocked his words and told him to stay out of it. Yet as soon as the soldiers approached Yui, he struck them down one by one, and none of them could even touch him. It became clear that Yui possessed astonishing fighting skills, beyond their imagination. Suddenly, the commander appeared behind him, pressing the barrel of his gun against the back of Yui's head. At that moment, Bai grabbed the commander's hand and stopped him from firing his gun, then told him to leave the restaurant with his soldiers. The commander assumed that Bai and Yui were friends working together, and his words angered Bai. Bai then broke his hand, seized the weapon, and the commander fell to the ground, admitting defeat. Yet the commander challenged Bai to tell him his name so they could face each other again. Bai laughed and pulled out a card, revealing that he was the leader of the Chinji Gang, a notorious organization feared by all. Terrified, the commander quickly apologized to Bai, begging for forgiveness, claiming he had not known who he was. But Bai ignored him and drove him out of the restaurant. He then turned back to Yui, telling him that he was incredibly strong, and sat beside him, asking Yui to work with him. Yui, however, ignored the request and went to Cheng to order some food before leaving. Out of gratitude, she gave him a large portion of food. Yui thanked her and prepared to go. Before he left, Bai stopped him and handed him a card, telling him that if he ever needed anything, he should come to him. Yui took the card and walked away. Yui returned to the place where he slept, just a corner on the street, and found his friend Dasha waiting anxiously, tears streaming down his face, thinking Yui had abandoned him. Yui went to him and handed him the food he had brought, and Dasha's face lit up with joy as they sat down to eat together. While they ate, Yui drifted into thought and asked Dasha deep, existential questions. Why are some people living in comfort, while others, like us, can't even find food? Dasha replied, "Stop thinking about that. This is simply our fate." But Yui wasn't content with such a fate. He then asked, "What will we do tomorrow?" Dasha answered, "We'll continue searching for your mother." Yui grew upset and said firmly, "She must be dead, and even if she isn't, I'll never find her in a city this vast. I didn't come here to look for her. I came here for revenge." He recalled the tragic days of his past. As a child, after the fire that destroyed his home and took his mother away, 3 years later, a gang came and slaughtered everyone in his village. He was the only survivor. Dasha tried to turn him away from his decision, reminding him that 13 years had passed and that revenge was not the right path. But Yui remained steadfast in his resolve. The next day, Yui was sitting with Bai and some others. During their conversation, a man named Feng revealed to Yui that Bai was the leader of the Shenji gang. Yui was shocked, for the Shenji were the very same gang that had massacred his entire village years ago, the ones he had long sworn to take revenge on. Overwhelmed, Yui walked away to clear his mind and went to his room, where he picked up his necklace, the last memory he had of his mother. Suddenly, an elderly woman entered. The moment she saw him, she clung to him joyfully, believing he was her long-lost son who had finally returned. Yui gently pulled away and left, but the woman chased after him, insisting he was her child. At that moment, her real son, Chan, appeared. He pulled her away and even fired a shot at Yui as a warning. It became clear then that the woman suffered from a mental illness. Later, Yui met Fang again. Fang repeated his offer for Yui to join the Shenji clan, promising him shelter and a far higher position than his current state, but Yui refused. He pulled out the card Bai had once given him, handed it to Fang, and asked him to tell Bai to stay away from him forever. The following night, Yui went to Bai's mansion and stealthily entered his room, intending to kill him. But at the last moment, Bai woke up, surprised and confused as to why Yui wanted his death after only knowing him for 2 days. Yui tried to escape, but Bai quickly caught up with him and surrounded him with his men. Bai questioned him again, and Yui admitted that his hatred was not toward Bai himself, but toward the Shenji gang. This puzzled Bai, who pressed for an explanation, but Yui evaded the question and refused to answer. Bai then proposed a duel. If Yui won, he could leave freely, but if he lost, he would have to reveal the truth. The fight began. Despite Yui's impressive combat skills, Bai proved himself equally skilled. They exchanged fierce blows, their strengths nearly equal, until at last Bai landed a decisive strike that knocked the weapon from Yui's hand and defeated him. Bai tied Yui to a chair after defeating him and began to question why he had attempted to kill him. Yui replied that the reason was that Bai was the gang leader. Bai, puzzled, asked him to explain. Yui said that the Shenji gang had wiped out everyone in his village. Bai was surprised and denied it, explaining that the Shenji leader had been missing at the time of the massacre and that the gang had carried out no operation then. The atrocity had been committed by someone else, a man who had stolen his weapons. Yui asked if that were true, who the killer was. Bai answered that the killer was a man named Yan. Yui then remembered seeing a stranger twice, once when his house burned and his mother was taken, and again when his village was slaughtered. He began to suspect that this stranger was Yan. Bai relaxed and spoke with him, producing a file of crime reports. He explained that Yan always left a file behind after each crime, and that the file for Yui's village indicated that Yan had committed the atrocity in search of a child aged 7. Yui asked why Bai was helping him. Bai replied that he wanted Yui's help to eliminate the old members of the gang. They had killed Bai's older brother. Yui accepted the offer and decided to assist him in eradicating all of Bai's enemies. Bai went out with Yui to introduce him to his friends, lying to them by saying he only did this to show Yui's skills. As they were speaking, an elderly man named Roy entered. It became clear that he was an old member of the gang. Roy came to inform Bai that the senior leaders had decided to add a new member to the gang, a girl named Zhao. Bai rejected the decision, saying that a girl could not be part of the gang. Roy replied that it was no different from recruiting children, reminding him that he had recruited Yui. At that moment, Yui remembered seeing Roy among the men present during the massacre of his village. Bai, however, responded firmly, saying that only the leader had the right to decide who remained in the gang and who was dismissed. In the end, he decided that Zhao would stay under training for 1 month only. Zhao moved in to live with the gang members, but as soon as she entered the room, Ji began to bully her. The situation quickly escalated until they pointed their weapons at each other, if not for the other members who intervened and stopped them. Angry and upset, Zhao went to Bai, shouting at him, convinced that Ji had bullied her under Bai's orders to drive her away. That night, while the gang members were sleeping in their shared room, they suddenly awoke to find a fire spreading inside. They soon realized it was a deliberate attack. Suddenly, the door burst open and masked men stormed in, striking at them relentlessly. But the gang members were unable to fight back because the smoke was too heavy to breathe. At that moment, Yu Li found an exit from the room and led everyone outside, leaving Zhao and Ji behind. Ji was still struggling with one of the masked attackers when the man raised a knife to strike him down. At the last moment, Zhao gravely intervened, knocking the knife from the assailant's hand and saving Ji's life. After the others escaped from the room, Bai told them that he had orchestrated the incident himself because he wanted to teach them the first lesson, that they must be willing to sacrifice for each other and tried to escape together. He then added that they had failed. Yui objected, saying they had indeed made it out and hadn't failed. But Bai told him to focus. They were still missing 2 members. When they realized Zhou and Ji were absent, they went back to bring them. Once everyone was reunited, Bai explained that if Yui hadn't discovered the exit, they would all be dead. Therefore, only 2 of them had succeeded in the test. Yui for finding the way out, and Zhou for sacrificing her chance to escape in order to save Ji. After that, he left them to return to sleep. But Zhou followed him and told him he was a mysterious, incomprehensible person and that she had never expected training to be so harsh. Bai grew angry and told her that he knew the real reason she was there, that Roy had sent her to spy on him. Yet he was certain she would never succeed with such brutal training. He advised her to leave, saying it would be better for her. After a long time, Yui finally met his father, whose name was Ying, and it was revealed that he had once been the former leader of the Shinji gang. Ying took his son to his home, and the moment he saw the house, memories overwhelmed him. He told Yui that he hated ever being part of the gang because they always ignored the interests of the people. They entered the house, and Ying began recalling his memories with his wife, Ro. While exploring the place, they found two necklaces identical to Yui's, the one that was his last memory of his mother. Yui told his father that he had a necklace just like it, and the other had belonged to his mother. He explained that he recognized his mother when he saw her wearing that necklace, and she recognized him in the same way. It was the only thing left from her, as she had passed away some time ago. Then Yui asked his father if he was the one who had given it to her. Ying remembered the day he married Yui's mother, how deeply he loved her, and the moment he gave her the necklace. At that instant, it became clear that Yui's mother was the same woman who once held him and said he was her son. Ying told Yui that when he had saved his mother from the fire long ago, she had been trying to rescue Yui with her, but Ying had forcibly taken her away. He explained that from that day on, she had been deeply troubled, as leaving her child behind left her psychologically ill. In an attempt to heal her, Ying brought her another boy of the same age as Yui, whose name was Chan, and, indeed, her condition began to improve. However, after some time, she realized that the boy was not her real son because he did not possess the necklace that Yui had. Her illness returned once again. As her suffering worsened, Ying felt guilty. He gathered all the leaders of the Shinji gang and went to the village where Yui had once lived. But when he arrived, he found no one alive. The village was in ruins, and all its people were dead. At that moment, Yui felt guilty, believing that everyone in the village had died because of him. But Ying comforted him, telling him not to blame himself, and admitted that the fault was his own. He was the one who had let Yan draw the map. He was the one who forgot about Ro's son and failed to save him, and he was the reason for Ro's tragic state. Then Ying begged Yui not to hate him. Yui replied that he did not hate him, but his daughter Chu was the one who despised him. It was then revealed that Yui and Chu were siblings from the same father. After this, Yui left Ying and walked away. Yui found Bai waiting outside, as he had come to meet him after hearing that he had returned to the city. Bai offered to help Yui's father, Ying, and told him that he could bring a foreign doctor to treat him. At that moment, Chu arrived. When she saw Yui, she asked him if Ying had remembered his past, then she continued on to face her father. She confronted him harshly, telling him that she hated him because he had never loved her mother. Despite her mother's endless devotion and waiting for him, he had never cared for them. Ying kept apologizing, but Chu rejected his apologies, saying that no words could bring back her wasted years or her mother. She then drew a gun, intending to kill him, but in the end, she could not. Instead, she fired a shot into the air and left, devastated. Fearing that she might have killed Ying, Yui rushed in to check on him. He found Ying holding Ro's necklace before passing away, not from the bullet, but from his pain and weakness. That night, Bai went to Chu to comfort her, telling her to cry as much as she needed. It was as if she had been waiting for those words. She broke down completely in tears. Chu left her father and went to her room, where she spoke to her mother's picture, saying, "Father has finally returned, but he left faster than I expected." Despite everything Ying had done to them, she still felt sorrow for him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Fang was following Chan into a house. When he entered behind him, he was shocked to discover that Ro was still alive. Fang asked him why he was hiding this from everyone, and Chan admitted he was afraid that Yui would take her away from him. He confessed that he knew what he had done was wrong, but he questioned, "Why am I the only one without a mother like everyone else?" Fang then asked about the medicine he was giving Ro, and it turned out to be a painkiller that caused addiction. Fang struck him angrily, saying that what he was doing would only harm her. Chan burst into tears and explained that Ro had been suffering from epileptic seizures and he could not bear to watch her in pain, so he had given her the drug and she seemed to improve. He promised he would reduce the dosage. He then begged Fang not to tell anyone that Ro was still alive or that she was being given narcotics. Fang agreed to keep the secret about the drug, but insisted that Yui must know his mother was alive, forcing Chan to accept his demand. Chan took Yui and led him to where their mother was kept. Yui grew furious when he discovered that Chan had locked his mother away and told everyone she was dead. He hurried to free her and tried to wake her, as she was unconscious under the effect of the drug. When she opened her eyes and saw him, she was overwhelmed with joy. Yui then noticed burn marks on her hands, and when he asked Chan about them, Chan explained that she had been burned long ago when the house caught fire before she escaped. At that moment, she suffered a seizure, and Cheng rushed to fetch her medicine. However, Yui realized that what he had been giving her was nothing but a narcotic. Enraged, he warned Cheng never to treat her as his mother again. Yui then turned to his mother, trying to explain that the drug was harming her and refused to give her any more. He intended to take her away with him, but Cheng, consumed with jealousy, pulled out his gun and refused to let Yui leave with her. Ro stepped forward to protect Yui and stood in front of him, but this only deepened Cheng's jealousy. He cried out in despair that his life had been happy with his mother until Yui returned and ruined everything. He went on, saying that he had done everything possible to make Ro see him as his son, but she always thought of Yui instead. Still, Cheng admitted he loved her because she was the only thing he had left.
Yui takes advantage of Cheng being distracted and pushes Ro aside, then grabs the gun, trying to knock it out of Cheng's hand. While they struggle, a bullet suddenly goes off and hits Ro. Both of them are shocked by what just happened. Yui rushes to her, holding the gun, and is about to kill Cheng, but Ro stops him before dying, telling him that Cheng is also her son. She then dies in Yui's arms. Cheng begins to hallucinate, crying out that he is her real son, not Yui. Before everyone gathers after hearing the gunshot, Cheng quickly runs away. When the others arrive, they are stunned to see that Ro was alive all this time, and Yui tells them that Cheng had been keeping her imprisoned. Later, Yui buries his mother, and after some time, we see him entering an orphanage he founded himself, so no child would ever be left without a home. Yui decides to abandon the path of revenge and dedicate himself to helping those around him. And with that, the story comes to an end.
If you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel.